Casey was absolutely coddled and celebrated, and it was blame ANIYA all on AFTERSUN, y'all. Hey there, it's Anonymous Tea, where we spill the tea anonymously. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, YouTubers. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day today, sending good vibes, sending positivity, sending blessings, and good energy to each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So, anything I say is alleged and in my very, very personal opinion. This for entertainment purposes only. None of this is personal. The Copyright Act of 1976 is in the description box. Some meat and potatoes, some housekeeping items. So, today we are talking Love Island USA Season 8, Episode 33, you guys, which was the AFTERSUN episode. And I had to keep pausing the episode because I had to just, you know what I'm saying? I had to keep taking a moment for myself because I was getting agitated. I was getting pissed off because I had a feeling that this was going to go one of two ways in Casey and TT's press tour, right? That either Casey was going to take accountability, not bash ANIYA in the press, and be on some grown man-ish. But unfortunately, he has allowed the manosphere, the red pill sector, you know what I'm saying, to infiltrate in his head, you know what I'm saying, and spew all the hot takes that we have been, disputing over here on this platform for weeks. And he was contradicting everything that he said on the show. And now it just feels like him and TT's apologies to ANIYA were just fake and phony. So we're going to get into it. But first I want to get into, you know what I'm saying, the AFTERSUN show of it all. I want to say this. I'm not being mean. I'm not being a negative Nancy or any of the things. But I really think that AFTERSUN needs to consider going back to having a former Islander host the show. Whether it is Maura or whether it is Justine, you know what I'm saying? Somebody who has actually been through what happens on this show. My issue with Sierra and Teffy is that they have, backtracked and walked back several takes. Oh, and if y'all are a fan, just say that, because I caught Teffy tonight saying, no. And saying the Corbett of it all, because y'all know I be saying the soul of it all and the such and such of it all and everything else. If you are a fan, just say that. You know what I'm saying? But real talk, I really think having a former Islander host and interview fellow former Islanders, they have the context and the background and experience that nobody else can take away from them. They understand how the show works. They understand the format of this being a 6-week show. They understand what goes on with the behind the scenes with production. They understand coming out to both praise and social media hate. And I feel like context is missing with Teffy and Sierra because they flip-flop and walk back depending on which week it is, right? So ultimately, we start off the AFTERSUN episode. Sierra basically had to get back to the Hamptons because she has to film Summer House. So she was on a flat screen TV the whole episode, right? She said that she had FOMO because her and Teffy had plans to go to the water park in Fiji, and they had FOMO when they saw all of the girls get to do that, right? So they said that they have a big show. It was a 59-minute episode. They have 6 dump Islanders that they have to get into. And so then they wanted to discuss the situationship, right? And it seems like low-key, high-key, that Sierra and Teffy are kind of defending Kata and the situationship and kind of feeling like Trinity went too far, not agreeing with it, is what it sounded like to me. And it sounded like they were trying to define the levels of dating and exclusivity and everything else. Here's the thing, as it pertains to the actual show, of Love Island, right? Traditionally, there have been these, these levels, these stages, like, hey, we're going to decide to close off or be exclusive, meaning we're done exploring, right? We're done exploring. We don't want to talk to anybody else. And then, you know what I'm saying? By the end of the show, you're supposed to become boyfriend and girlfriend, allegedly, right? But that doesn't happen for every couple, right? Or sometimes what'll happen as well, even if you don't become boyfriend and girlfriend, sometimes what'll happen is y'all may do the exclusive thing and then bust out the L word on your final date. That happens too, right? On this show. The issue with Kata is that she and Zack Attack were trying to present this as a storyline. They were trying to present this as something that everybody needed to be behind and support and celebrate. And Kata, you know what I'm saying? I don't think she was happy initially with the reaction that she got from Trinity when she told her in confidence. And I think Kata was expecting the opposite reaction when she told all of the girls at the water park. And that's why there was pushback, because they're like, where I'm from, and even Trinity said it, where I'm from, a situationship basically just means that y'all having SEX, y'all doing stuff, but y'all not really defining anything. You know what I'm saying? That y'all saying y'all exclusive or whatever else, but why not put the label on it? Why not say, listen, where I'm from, if we're exclusive, we better be boyfriend and girlfriend. But because if you're telling me you do not want to be dating any other woman, you only want to be dating me, I'm under the impression we're boyfriend and girlfriend. All of these stages is ridiculous. Dating, you know what I'm saying? You're getting to know the person. You may got one or two other people you might be seeing at the same time and trying to, you know what I'm saying, weigh your options, see who is the best match and all of the things. But eventually it's going to get to a point after a month or two or however long to where, not me hitting something, where somebody is going to, you know what I'm saying, stand out amongst the rest. Zack Attack knows that there is nobody else in that villa that wants his behind. And we still do not know for a fact, had Alana not been kicked off the show, if he would have brought her back from Casa Amor, or if there would have been something else that would have progressed further between the two of them. We will never know. But ultimately, you're not exploring anybody else but Kata ever since you've been back from Casa Amor. So what is the delay? You know what I'm saying? You allow Casey and TT, who have barely been together as long as the two of y'all, outdo y'all. Make it make sense. So then they decided to pan to the camera crew to ask them what their definition is. Do they agree with Trinity? And they all stood up. They all raised their hand that they agreed with Trinity's assessment, that this is a situationship. And it spoke volumes to me as well that Zack Attack's own family did not want to fly to Fiji to meet Kata. I found that very interesting because I believe if his parents are really in Australia, that's allegedly a 4-hour flight to Fiji. Whereas Kata's people, her sister and her mom, flew 22 hours to go to Fiji to meet this dude. So that tells me Zack Attack is not as serious as Kata is. But if you tell Kata this, she freaks out. Because she's too far gone because they had SEX week 2. So Kata does not want to hear anything that is against that, right? So then they were gushing about Family Day, and they were gushing about ANIYA and Carl's family, their mothers, how pretty, how beautiful they were, and everything else. And so then Sierra made the comment, well, you know black don't crack, right? And so then Teffy was trying to come up with a saying for Latinas. But there's also a saying that Asian don't raisin, right? But, you know, Teffy was like, oh, we got to get something on the books for the Latinas. So then Sierra and, Teffy, they were, freaking out over ANIYA saying that Carl seems like husband material. They also, Sierra was happy that ANIYA's mom spoke life into her, and she said that she would want that for her daughter. And then Sierra starts crying, right? She starts getting emotional, right? But they're not really, I didn't feel they really were as emotional about ANIYA's mom. They did a complete 180 on Melanie. So in every single AFTERSUN episode, you guys, up until this episode, they have been going in on Melanie. That Melanie needs to that needs to give Sincere a chance, that she's being too hard on him, that she's freaking out on him, that they've allowed the Casa people to paint this narrative that Melanie is the problem, and that Sincere is a really nice guy, and that Sincere is a really good guy. But now all of a sudden that you see Melanie breaking down, and this is the same flip-flop y'all did with ANIYA, that all of a sudden when you see somebody breaking down, and it's not all rainbows and flowers anymore. Now, all of a sudden, y'all want to get emotional. Both Sierra and Tappy had a whole crying session claiming that, well, I've been there with Melanie where family and friends are trying to tell you that this guy is no good, that y'all need to break up and da-da-da-da-da and all this. And so I'm sympathetic to what Melanie's going through. Y'all been dragging Melanie this whole time and saying she's doing too much over Sincere. Now, all of a sudden, y'all can relate to Melanie and what she's going through, all because of a family visit. And now, all of a sudden, Tappy is calling out the brands, because there have been several brands that have been saying to Melanie, if you dump Sincere, you know what I'm saying? You can get some free yoga. You can get a free flight. You can get free food at our restaurant. You know what I'm saying? All these brands have piled on, and they basically said that that's not fair to Melanie, and that puts too much pressure on Melanie to break up with Sincere, because it's clear that she is locked in with Sincere and all of the things, right? Here's what's going to happen. I feel like this is going to be in the same realm as, what happened with Kaylor and what happened with Johnny and Sally, which is eventually Melanie's going to have to watch the show back. She's going to have to, because she is still just operating of trying to find ways to make it work with Sincere, and still trying to find ways to mend things with the family. And it sounds like low-key, what was the family performing? Because I see the family's been hanging out in Fiji. Y'all didn't want to take no pictures together on the show, but now all of a sudden, Melanie's sister, who was calling Caleb her brother-in-law, now y'all going to the water park together. Now y'all going out to eat together. You know what I'm saying? Now it's all Gucci with Sincere and Melanie's family. After that, you know what I'm saying? So they didn't like the fact that these brands are trying to make Melanie a part of the marketing campaign. But I cannot, because y'all have been defending Sincere every single episode. And this is why the fans are upset, because y'all don't stand on business. If y'all don't like the way that the relationship of Melanie and Sincere is going, stand on that. But if y'all are going to flip-flop and defend Sincere all these weeks, and now all of a sudden the last episode put this cape on for Melanie, it's weird. It is weird. Next, we got to get into Corbin and Persian Cat. And ultimately, it was a lot to unpack in their portion of, these dumped Islanders. So they went first. So it picks up where Corbin and Persian Cat get dumped. Corbin basically says that he is sad that he got dumped from the villa, that this has been his life for the last month. Persian Cat says that she is scared because ultimately the real world tests relationships, and there could be real distractions and everything else on the outside world. So then she wants to discuss the fact, how could she trust Corbin? How does she know that he's still not an F-boy and all this and all of that? And so she says that she's 27 years old. She's been with rappers. She's been with artists. She's been with athletes. She's been with all these people. She's been everywhere. She's received all this attention before. She knows how it goes with men in Miami. And so basically, Corbin basically flipped it on her. Well, I got to see that I can trust you as well. No. So ultimately, we get a scene where they are interviewing Corbin and Persian Cat the night after, they have, it's morning, like the song As We Lay, it's morning. So there's an interview with them, and they get their phones back. So it sounds like they had the SEX the night before, but Persian Cat is upset because, apparently Corbin, was one and done, right? He was one and done, and she wanted to have more SEX. She wanted to go all night, you know what I'm saying? And Corbin's not on that type of time. It's all about, I'm here for me, and then I'm going to go to sleep. That's what it sounds like to me. So, you know what I'm saying? They get their phones back, and Persian Cat sees that people are calling her Parmesan. They say that she's getting called Parmesan. Corbin is seeing all the AI jokes that they're calling him Corbin GPT, Corbin AI, and all this and all that. Then they saw the comment that Corbin, you know what I'm saying, that she let him DJ on her once, and he went on a tour. and he asked Persian Cat if she knew what that meant, and she said no, and he was like, okay, good. So ultimately, it sounds like Corbin still does not want to settle down yet. You know what I'm saying? And, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Because ultimately, I still feel like Corbin and Casey and Sincere are about to be on you know what I'm saying, the F-Boy tour of a lifetime. So we will see how long all of this lasts. But ultimately, first we have, Persian on the phone with her parents. They asked them to kiss. The dad did not like all the kissing and all the extracurriculars that was taking place with Persian Cat and ultimately Corbin, right? So then we get to the interview with, Teffy and Sierra. So Teffy immediately calls him AI and asks how happy he is to be a part of this interview. And he's like, I'm 99% happy to be here, but there's still that 1%. And so then they are bragging about the fact that they were the first couple to close off and be exclusive. And here's the thing. It was not a celebration because nobody in the villa cared. Nobody in the villa cared. And so then ultimately, Persian Cat said that when she came in Casa that her number one was Casey. So she was interested in Casey, Caleb, and Corbin. So Corbin was her third option, her third choice. But see, unlike Casey, Corbin is not making that his identity. So they also talked about the fact that Persian Cat DM'd Corbin first and everything else, and that they were both from Miami and all of the things, right? And so then the question was asked, what was the issue with, Kenzie? Like why didn't, you and Kenzie work? And so he said ultimately, although him and Kenzie were together for a while inside the villa, that more and more he started to see more of her true colors come out. And so it sounds like to me, you were willing, at some point you realized Kenzie was not right for you, but you stuck it out with her until Casa Amor, and then that's when you made your escape. So kind of similar like what Casey did to ANIYA, right? But my thing is, I think Corbin could have had a chance at this money. He could have had a chance at the 100K if he was actually giving the Melanie connection a chance. And the problem was, Melanie peeped that Corbin and Kenzie were sneaking around with each other, and she decided to remove herself from the situation, which led to her ultimately going back to Sincere. And that was the problem, because I actually think Corbin and Melanie could have had a real chance at this 100K. They could have been top two, if we want to keep it a buck, had he left the Kenzie of it all alone. You know what I'm saying? But ultimately, it sounded like he was playing with Kenzie too, that he enjoyed the physical benefits of Kenzie, but, he is claiming that at some point there was true colors about her. So I guess the big gripe, or one of the strikes, was that Kenzie wanted Corbin to make grilled cheese sandwiches for her because she saw the other men doing that for their couples. And basically Corbin was like, I'm not doing that for you. That sounds like KC. I'm not doing that for you. You know what I'm saying? And then he didn't understand why she wanted grilled cheese so bad if they're both lactose intolerant. So then also, she was mad about the Kenzie out the door comment, and he didn't understand that because he said it was Casey who said it, right? And so then he felt as though, so then the question turned to his couple with him and Persia Cat, right? And so the question was, what do you feel about people saying that y'all don't have deep conversations, that y'all don't know anything about each other, that it's just strictly lust, it's strictly a physical connection? So basically Corbin says, Persian Cat says that they have had several conversations about his family, about his upbringing, about his childhood, about his future, about his hobbies. So then they ask her, okay, since you know about his hobbies, what does Corbin like to do? Why was there silence? And Persian Cat was like, F-U-C-K. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And so Taffy was trying to help out. Like, is it wakeboarding? Is it something like, what does he like to do? So then Corbin tries to save it and said, well, she likes piano, and she said that she is a keyboard, that she's trying to move to Miami and all this and all that. And then they had her yodel, they had her sing, and I don't know why, because nobody was trying to feel that. Nobody was trying to feel that. And I feel like, to me, I still feel like there's nothing of substance. And it sounds like, Persian Cat wants to smash Corbin all day, and Corbin is like, listen, I'm going to get what I'm going to get, and that's going to be it, right? And so then the hosts were calling them the hottest couple. And this is what I'm saying. Y'all are playing into the superficialness of this couple, right? And so then they were like, well, next we got to get with Kenzie. We got to get with, our clam slam queen, right? So they talked to Kenzie and Dylan, right? And I'm not going to hold y'all. I actually became a Kenzie fan tonight. I think I didn't want her in this villa. I was getting sick of her in the villa. But ultimately, towards the end, you know what I'm saying? I really didn't have an issue with her. You know what I mean? She was doing some grimy stuff and things like that. But towards the end, now that she's out of the villa, I feel like her and Jen and Caleb understand the assignment in terms of how to handle this post-Villa success. I have to withdraw my Kenzie support. She just did a pass the phone challenge with Casey, basically saying he was the most villainized in the Villa, y'all. And so ultimately what has happened is they interview Kenzie and Dylan. They apparently shared a room. She snuck into his room or whatever the case may be, and they did not fall asleep till 5 a.m. They allege that they had a lot of stuff to talk about, and she wants them to be exclusive, but she wants it to come from Dylan's mouth and all of this and all of that they probably did some grown-up activities as well, right? And so ultimately as well, Kenzie gets her dad on the line, right? She gets her dad on the line, and the dad is upset because he felt like on the show, all they showed Kenzie talking about was the sex. You know what I'm saying? And then Kenzie opened up her Instagram account and saw the Sincere comparisons, right? And felt that was sexist to say that her and Sincere were the same. And she said the reason that she had to go through so many guys was that Dylan didn't come in first, right? And so then we transition over to her interview with Sierra and Taffy, right? So Kenzie, you know what I'm saying, talks about why she does the splits, how it's good for, your body and all this and all of that. And she says that she doesn't have a roster. She doesn't have Snappity Chat. So I guess she associates Snappity Chat, I guess, with people having rosters or having multiple people that they're talking to, that they're dealing with, and all of the things, right? That was kind of the vibe that I was getting. It sounds like somebody might have played in her face in the past with the Snappity Chat of it all and would like for Dylan to delete it, is what it sounded like to me. She said she's not been involved with anybody for the last couple of years, and she said her issue on the show, the reason she was having problems was it completely shook her that none of the men in there were interested in blondes. And that was unheard of for her compared to where she's come from. All the men love them some blondes, like where she's, from. So ultimately, they tell Kenzie that she had the vision wrong, and she was like, "I can't believe it. I maybe it's been a while since I've been in nursing school and all this and all that. I can't believe I was wrong." And then she said part of the reason she had smoke for Corbin was him saying that, Kenzie was out the window, and then the host corrected him and said that, it was actually Casey that said that. But the thing of it was, what Corbin said, Corbin basically said that the connection was over. That was what the problem was. The problem was Corbin ended the connection during that heart rate challenge. And he was the only man that did that. He was the only man that said that this connection is over along those lines. And then that's when KC was like, yeah, and you're throwing Kenzie out the window. So then they asked, Kenzie about what happened with Gal and the Jen of it all and everything else. And so she likes the fact that Jen called her out, and she said in real life she would not do something like that. You know what I'm saying? Because Jen made the comment that if this was the real world that they would not be friends and all of this and all of that. And she said she liked the fact that Jen called her out on her BS. She said that this is a part of the game, you know what I'm saying, to explore multiple connections. And she said ultimately she likes the way that it happened the way that it did because it was a way for her to blossom into the experience and then put more focus in on her and Dylan. And so then she said as well, she likes how the girls are. She likes the OG girls. She likes how upfront they are. She said those girls are her family. She said she loves each of the women individually. And this is what I'm talking about. Casey and TT coming up. This is how you move. And this is why Kenzie already secured an interview with Call Her Daddy. She already secured an interview with Call Her Daddy before she even left Fiji. You know what I'm saying? Kenzie is about to make bank. Her and Caleb are about to make bank. And Kenzie is handling all of this really well. And so then they asked Kenzie to do a split before they brought out Dylan. So I think what they are doing is with the OGs, they want to talk to the OGs first and then bring out their couple. Since Corbin came in as a bombshell, they had him and Persia Cat come out for as a couple for the entirety of the interview. But that's not how they did Kenzie, and that's not how they're going to do Casey, right? And so then what happens is Dylan comes in, and then Kenzie saying right before the interview, she's like rubbing on him, talking about, well, I'm getting horny. And he was like, control it. Like lock it down. We've got to talk, right? So Dylan confirms that him and Kenzie are in fact exclusive. They are not going to be dating anyone else. And they asked if he would consider deleting his Snappity chat if Kenzie asked. And he said, well, he's not sure at first, because he said the reason that he has it is he likes to reminisce on old pictures and photos. And ultimately, as well, he has a couple of group chats with friends that he likes communicating back and forth. But if Kenzie, wants him to delete the Snappity chat, then he will consider it, right? So then they talk about the fact that they won the couples karaoke and felt that it was amazing to win. So then they asked Dylan to do another backflip on the spot and all this and all of that. And he said he almost injured himself, but was able to fix it. And then they asked about, what do you feel about people saying on social media that he was fake crying and being fake and phony and all this and all of that. And, he basically said that he's not here to appease everybody. He knows who he is. He knows who's genuine. I don't buy it. I think if him and Kenzie stay together, it is going to be because he knows the star power that Kenzie has, which also would make him fake and phony. Anyways, also, they asked about how do they feel about being eliminated and not making it to the finale. And they said that they would have, of course, liked to stay and be in the house longer and all that. Not the house longer, I'm thinking Big Brother. In the villa longer. However, and they would have liked to have a date, but they said that they can go on dates outside of the show. And Kenzie likes the fact that she can fly home, she can spend time with her family and everything else. Dylan then wants to, reiterate that he is not here for an act. And ultimately, Kenzie said that she probably should have talked to Gal earlier, so that she could have known early on that it was not going to work. And also, she said as well that they asked her about, her comment about kissing being a handshake. And she basically said it depends on the type of handshake. I cannot. So that was that for Kenzie and Dylan. We now need to move on to Casey and TT. So we get to Casey and TT, and we get to their first initial interview with the producers before they go on AFTERSUN, right? And so it is interesting to me that the other couples, Kenzie and Dylan, and Persian Cat and Corbin, there was not a conversation about their followers, but Tati and KC lit up that he had over 250 something thousand odd followers. And I found that interesting. I've been paying attention on AFTERSUN to which Islanders cared about their followers and which ones did not. And when I feel like you are more concerned about your followers, there's a way to react to it. And then there's a way if you are just making it seem as though you were just there for the followers and the clout and the fame. So also Casey's boss from his CNA job apparently had messaged him and said that they went through a wave of emotions, that they started off really happy for him, really excited for him. Then there was times that they were mad. There were times they were disappointed, but ultimately, they liked how the overall experience turned out for him. Ultimately, they looked at the clip where TT came back from Casa Amor in front of the Villa girls saying, I'm TT. And Casey said, this is why I like you, because you stand up for me. I like that. That is sexy. And so then they also saw the comments that they're going to break up in 2 weeks. Then TT was reading some paragraph about how Casey is a strong black man and how, black men this, black man that, and all this and all of that, and what the black male stereotype is. And they feel that they're getting all this hate and they're not getting all this support because they're black. But last I checked, ANIYA's black, who is still in the villa. Trinity is black, who is still in the villa. And we have an all four final four, of which, Kata is half Haitian. You know what I'm saying? And Melanie is Afro-Latina. Like, what are we doing? You know what I'm saying? Like if it was anti-black, then why isn't a Caleb finale? Why isn't a Kenzie finale and a Jen finale? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand why we're trying to go down this road. And so she feels as though because she is from where she's from and that she had black braids and she's viewed as aggressive, but Serena had braids, Shelly has had braids, and Alandria has had braids. And it was a completely, yes, they got all types of unnecessary hate as well. But ultimately, what y'all are trying to do, I'm not respecting it, right? And so she feels because she stood up for herself that that's why she's getting hate. But why is it a problem when ANIYA and Trinity stood up for themselves and defend themselves, that they're a problem, that they're mean girls? But when you stand up, you know what I'm saying, people aren't receptive. The problem was that ultimately the conversation, the smoke that ANIYA, Trinity, and Kata had for Casey was they had specific questions for Casey only. You kept speaking for him. You kept interjecting. And it got to a point where even Trinity said to Ariana Madix, the host, "Can I ask Casey a question?" And you still wanted to interject. So then Casey is trying to make it seem like it was run, the villa was run like the army. It was run like, you know what I'm saying, B613, that there's allegedly all these standards and there were certain rules in there and there was unwritten rules of what you could do and not do, and that he received so much hate and so much criticism and so much backlash when he was doing things right or when he wasn't doing things right, and that he, you know, although at times he was moving weird, he wasn't trying to hurt anyone, and that he knows what who he is, and no matter what people think, and all this and all that. And Tay is at the front line basically saying that, you know, she is grateful to have Casey, right? So now we have solo Casey in the studio for the AFTERSUN interview, right? And so they were like, "Casey, you are one of the most talked about Islanders for the good and the bad," right? And Casey was like, "Listen, look at here. There's a lot of positive. There's a lot of negative. I'm from a small town in Fresno." Fresno people or Cali people, let me know in the comments if that's true, right? And he said that, you know, just a couple of months ago, he was wiping ASS because he is a CNA, which is a nursing assistant. And Sierra was like, "Well, just 2 months ago, I also was wiping ASS and I'm a registered nurse," right? So then they bring up the door challenge, how he chose the plant first and nobody was behind that door, and also talked about the fact that how nobody was behind his door on, you know, when it was time to choose a couple, and they felt as though this set the tone and all of this and all of that for the show. So then Casey says that ANIYA needed a lot of reassurance day in and day out, and that it became draining. Now, here is the problem that I have, right? Is that you just told ANIYA that you had separate resentment for her. You said this at the Casa recoupling, and you said this in your apology, that your resentment for her, your issue was her, that she didn't pick you day one, that it had nothing to do with, you know, having to try to reassure her or all these things, right? And what do you mean by reassure her? This is the thing too, right? Because ultimately, until Soul got there, nobody else was interested in you, Casey. Nobody but ANIYA was interested in you. So what did you have to reassure ANIYA about day in and day out before Soul got there? Is my question, right? And so then, not only do you call ANIYA draining, you also call ANIYA fragile, right? And fragile, to me, if we're going to look at the, you know, the definition of calling somebody fragile or that they're frail, you know what I'm saying? Basically means that they are damaged, that they're easy to break, that they're delicate, that they're unstable, that they're brittle. You know what I'm saying? That they're weak. That's what you're calling ANIYA. All of those things, right? And you alluded to that on the show when you guys were having problems and you said, well, maybe she's got her own type of trauma and she's broken and I can't fix that. So you see her as a glass that easily breaks and did all this crying and did all this complaining about you. And I did not see that on the show. I must have watched a different show. So then Casey tries to say that it was good with ANIYA, but that it wasn't natural. So wouldn't that give validity to ANIYA's concerns that you were using her as a safe space, that perhaps it wasn't natural because you were not keeping it a buck with her? And so then he says as well that it took time for them to build up their connection, and that the last couple of weeks that Casey wanted to explore. But here's my thing. Who did you want to explore with? Soul? You know what I'm saying? Because I feel you said on the show that Soul and you didn't want to do anything because you saw Sincere hooping. That's what you said. You said Sincere got to Soul first, so you did not want to explore. You told ANIYA you were not interested in exploring Soul because you didn't want to mess up your connection with her. And you weren't going to risk a day or two to mess up the connection that you had with ANIYA. That is what you said. So now all of a sudden, you are claiming that you have been telling ANIYA this whole time you wanted to explore, and she was not receptive of it. But every time ANIYA asked you to your face, do you want to explore, you told her no. And the only time you confirmed that you wanted to explore was the episode the night before Casa Amor. You confirmed that you would have explored Soul if she would have stayed in the villa. But my thing is too, you had an opportunity to save Soul and you chose not to. Y'all had an opportunity to dump Jen, either Jen, Kenzie, or Soul. And y'all went with Soul. And the guys were asking you, if we keep Soul, are you going to explore her? You were scared of ANIYA. You were scared of potentially getting an early dumping from the villa if you explored Soul, which is why you waited till Casa Amor to do it behind ANIYA's back. And you used ANIYA as a safety net, which is why ANIYA called you a coward. I don't like the fact that Casey is trying to rewrite history. And this notion that, you know what I'm saying, ANIYA was doing all this and doing all that. There were several conversations that we saw Casey and Soul have that ANIYA did not pull him for a chat. And you are dismissing the fact of the seeds that were planted from Bryce and Zack Attack, and especially Zack Attack, that basically said in the challenge that you were using ANIYA as the safe option. And that was why ANIYA went to interrupt your conversation. And you said it was draining, but every time ANIYA wanted to have a conversation with you, you were laughing. You were giggling. And ANIYA said, I want to have a serious conversation. This is a serious conversation about our couple. And you kept laughing at her. And then you went back and told the guys, oh, she wants me to be serious all the time. I don't like that. And that's not what happened. She was concerned about y'all couple and you running back telling all these people in the villa a different thing you were telling ANIYA to her face. And that's why she started getting concerned. That's why she pulled back on the intimacy, because something was telling her it was wrong. Something was wrong. People in the villa the girls for 3 weeks were telling her it was all in her head, but then the guys were telling her, oh no, Casey's actually telling us this. And it wasn't until the night before Casa Amor, Trinity finally told ANIYA, oh yeah, he really would have been interested in Soul. So that was after 3 weeks. The girls were telling ANIYA, get out of your head about KC. KC's really into you. Only to find out that he's telling the guys this whole time something else. So then Sierra agrees that it was too much reassurance to ANIYA. And ultimately felt as though that he was still getting hate, even though he supposedly was doing everything right. So you believe calling ANIYA the blueprint, calling her the beautiful black woman, the black queen, all of this and all of that, that is quote unquote doing everything right. You believe calling her a grandma because she would not be more intimate with you, was doing everything right. You believe that you and Corbin coming up with your own inside joke about ANIYA to where you always look at her and laugh now. Right, and this was the week leading up to Casa Amor. You thought that was doing something right, right? So then as well, he says that they were disappointed. He was stressing out, and he feels that the image that was painted is wrong about him, that he came from nothing and that he is, a grounded person and that he built everything from the ground up and all this and all that, and that it's not in his character to talk shit about people like that out in the open, and it's not like him to just wake up and talk down on people for weeks and weeks on end, and that ultimately he was holding in a lot of shit because somebody didn't hear you. But here was the problem, Casey. You and ANIYA did not have good communication, and if she felt that you were taking the conversation as a joke, that's why she walked away, because she felt that you weren't taking it serious, or when she would ask you, you would deny it and start laughing. So, but neither one of y'all just did not communicate well with each other when it was all said and done, right? And so Casey said that he had been holding all this stuff in, and it was frustrating that someone didn't hear you and that your feelings were on the back burner, and then it turns into resentment. And he said that all that shit that he said, it wasn't because of ANIYA, but there was resentment. But here's the thing. You told us on the show that all the shit you were saying about ANIYA was built up resentment against her for not picking you day one. I can't do the back and forth of the flippity flop of you not keeping 100, because you said a completely different narrative on the show. Just like in the beginning of the show, you said ANIYA didn't have issues with you pulling women for chats, that she wasn't insecure, she wasn't all these things. Now all of a sudden she's fragile. So he says his resentment, Neil, is because he was not true to himself and that he was not being straightforward with ANIYA. Now that's one thing I agree with, that Casey was not being straightforward with ANIYA. So then Sierra says that the image that you are on the internet is not who you are in real life, and that she's went through backlash and everything else as well. No. And so then Sierra's trying to hype him up that he's done run clubs and all of this and all of that. And he said, and talked about the fact that he's a male CNA, and not a lot of males like to wipe ASS and be in that type of position. And, he has to have his chin up and his chest up, right? And so then ultimately they switch gears to bring in TT. And so Teffy says, well, you found a woman that you're falling in love with. And, but again, this is y'all leading. So Casey has no choice but to agree, right? And so she's like, oh, clock that T. But you put that out there. You know what I'm saying? Casey didn't say it himself. And this is what I'm talking about. So then TT comes out, right? And so they were asking, how do you guys feel about things? Remember, you were all about KC, and ultimately you were mad that first night when he wanted to, sleep in the bed with Sydney and all this and all that. And so TT claims that she didn't think that KC was going to give her a chance because a lot of the women at Casa Amor were after him. Apparently, he was everyone's number one at Casa. But ultimately, she said that KC makes her laugh, and she is now trying to claim that she did not have to do too much to take KC. But here is the thing, TT. KC was acting like he still had ANIYA on the table. KC was still saying that ultimately, if that ANIYA was on a tight leash, what was on a thin line or whatever he said, right? And he still, to me, in my opinion, Corbin was done with his connection with Kenzie, but it didn't sound like to me KC was done with ANIYA. It sounded like to me when Casey is saying, I've got aura and my stocks are up and we're going to come back to this villa and dominate. It sounded like to me, Casey wanted ANIYA and TT to fight over him so he could make the ultimate decision. That he wanted to humiliate ANIYA as get back for her not choosing him day one on the doors. But he was expecting ANIYA to be so vulnerable and for nobody else to want her that she would have to be the one crawling back and begging KC, and KC would think that he would have his Cordell type of, back from Casa type of moment to where he can decide if he wants to get back together with ANIYA or not and secure his win. What Casey did not anticipate was the OG Villa girls going in on him because of how he moved during Casa with the limited information they had from the postcard as well as the heart rate challenge. And so then Casey never really got to, fully say, I guess, what his original speech was supposed to be, which I believe was supposed to be he was potentially still going to have conversations with ANIYA. But because he felt a way about how everybody came at him, he basically said, F this, I don't care, I don't give an F, and wrote off ANIYA. You come from a good family, I hope you have a nice life, and that's it, and that's all, right? So TT said that they had their chat, that they vibed. They're from the same area of South LA. And so then Teffy was asking if Casey could do a South LA accent. And he said he can't really do it because he didn't live there that long, but he said his younger siblings can. And he said that it does come out of TT whenever she gets mad. So then as well, Sierra said that when she gets tipsy, she gets a country accent. Then they talk about as well how TT entered the villa, how it came, how did she feel? So she says that it was tense at the villa when everyone came back together. She specifically calls out Trinity, ANIYA, and Kata coming at her and all this and all that. And it was like, again, they wanted you to shut up. Like, let's just talk about it. They wanted to talk to KC. They lived with KC for 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? You kept interrupting and speaking for KC. They wanted KC to have his own opinion and say what he needed to say, because this has been the issue with Casey and ANIYA. That Casey would run to Bryce, he would run to Zack Attack, he would tell Sincere the soul looks like his ex, and all of these things. And when ANIYA would ask him, he would not do anything. He would start laughing, start giggling, or downplay it. They wanted Casey to say what it was for himself, and he couldn't do it until the 11th hour, right? And all this and all of that. So Teffy was like, well, wait a second. You know what I'm saying? We saw all these interactions of you and the girls getting along. We saw a friendship develop. Do you have anything positive to say about them? And then that's when TT was like, oh, well, we're all good now. There's not any beef. There was in the beginning. The beef was about KC. It wasn't about you. The beef was about KC. It wasn't about you. So she says that it was hard in the beginning, it was tough, and she says that they are all sweet girls, but you're not following them, you're only following Melanie. Which would lead me to believe you still got smoke with ANIYA, with Kata, you know what I'm saying, with Trinity. That's what it sounds like to me. So then they were asked, TT and Casey were asked, what is their favorite moment in the villa? And they are not allowed to say each other. And so Casey said Corbin. But he said that he did not like Corbin in the beginning. Oh, that's because all the girls like Corbin, Casey. That's why you didn't like Corbin. And you didn't like the fact that he was getting to do whatever he wanted with Kenzie in the bedroom that you were not getting from ANIYA, which is also why you had the resentment. And so then it got to a point, and the point was when you realized that Zack Attack and Bryce and Sincere was running everything back that you were saying to ANIYA, that you decided to form your friendship with Corbin. Let's talk about it, right? Corbin was doing all that hooping. You felt away just like you felt away with Gabe getting all this action. And ultimately, when you started to realize that Zack Attack and Bryce and Sincere were all running stuff back that you were saying about ANIYA, you needed somebody else. You needed a confidant that you could bash ANIYA with and it wouldn't get back to her. Let's talk about it. So ultimately, he says as well that one moment they were just sitting there after a week and started laughing, and then that's how their friendship formed. TT says her favorite moment after throwing shade at you know what I'm saying, ANIYA, Trinity, and Kata, and still not following them on social media, said that her favorite day was the water park with all of the girls. She was able to be vulnerable and emotional, and they received so much love and support. So then they asked Casey and TT if they watched back the clips of them becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, and they said that they did, that they just saw it that day, and she is still going on and on and on about being a first-time girlfriend, right? So then they bring back all 6 dumped Islanders on the couch for their last segment. And so it is Corbin and Casey. They hug it out. They're so excited to see each other. Corbin hugs Casey and TT and tells them congrats because he was not there for the girlfriend proposal. Then they get to the bucket questions. First, there is a video question or whatever else. And so ultimately, somebody asked, what were you guys nervous about? Or what was something that you were shocking to learn about each other since being out the villa? But only Dylan answered that question that I found very interesting. But he also said that him and Casey both share the same birthday, which I find very interesting. So I'm sure the astrologers are going to be all over that. Then there was a question on whether the cast are they going to stay friends with everyone in the cast, right? And so Corbin said yes. Persian Cat said yes. Kenzie said yes. Dylan said yes. Casey said yes. And TT said no. And so they were like, are you going to say any names, TT? And she's like, well, no. And this is why people think Casey's, you know what I'm saying? Casey and TT, you know what I'm saying, are phony baloney. Because Casey, you just said you want to be friends with everyone in the cast, but you just put out a hit piece on ANIYA. TT, you know what I'm saying, is saying that you're cool with everyone, that there's no beef. But also in the same breath, you don't want to be friends with these girls. Make it make sense. I cannot, right? So then they want to know about who they felt the best kisser was, right? So both Persian Cat and Kenzie say that Casey and Sincere are the best kissers, right? But to me, it didn't look like he could kiss. I'm just going to keep it a buck with you. It looked like Sincere is the best kisser. You know what I'm saying? And so ultimately, as well, Casey says that Kenzie is a good kisser. So then the question was asked, how do they feel about getting Dion in the bed and all of this and all of that? And so basically Corbin was like, you just got to get to it to do it. You know what I'm saying? You just got to get to it to do it and whatever else. So they were trying to ask details. You got to wait for the lights to go out. Do you have to wait to see whether or not other Islanders go to sleep? And they basically were like, listen, we just do what we do, right? So then they were trying to ask if there was any unfinished business that anybody wanted to get off their chest. And so Persia Cat, wants to have a conversation with Kenzie because she felt Kenzie was doing the most, saying how much she loves Persian Cat and all this and all of that. And Kenzie was like, well, you're right. I don't love you. She was like, you're right. I don't love you. I just like you. Right. And ultimately, as well, Casey and TT were laughing away, right? So then the question is asked as far as who are the Islanders voting for? Who are they rooting for to win the show, right? Out of all of the couples, who is it that they are hoping to see, you know what I'm saying, win the 100K, right? And so what was interesting, Corbin wants Bryce and Trinity to win. Dylan wants Carl and ANIYA to win. Persian Cat wants Kata and Zack Attack to win. Kenzie wants Kata and Zack Attack to win. And TT and KC want Melanie and Sincere to win. And what I find interesting about this, you guys, is that weren't y'all calling Melanie a dumb ASS and laughing at her? But y'all were quick to follow her on the Instagrammies and everything else. But y'all called her a DUMB ASS as it pertained to Sincere. But y'all want her to win the 100K. I don't understand these people. I do not, right? So finally, the last thing that we got was a sneak peek for tomorrow's finale episode, which was they were showing us a sneak peek of the final dates. So it looks like Sincere and Melanie have a boat date, which is giving to me like a third place date. I feel like if you have dates during the day, typically it means that you've placed third and fourth, right? The only exception really was last season with Nico Landria, but most of the time it usually means that you place third or fourth, right? And so then they showed this date for Zack Attack and Kata that looked like straight from Dollar Tree. Look straight from Dollar Tree, you know what I'm saying? The oldest of boats, you know what I'm saying? A little red wagon, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Some Dollar Tree flowers, so some Dollar Tree wood, and all the things. It looked very cheap. It looked very thrown together. It looked very embarrassing, right? And then it looks like Karnaya and Brenity have the top 2 dates, right? Because typically if you get the nighttime dates, those are supposed to be the more elaborate and extravagant dates. Naya and Carl's date looks phenomenal. I am curious to see. It looks like there's little books that are hanging from these trees, and everything's like lit up really pretty and every nice. And so I'm wondering what those books say, if there's any messages or things like that that are on there. And you know, Anaya's like so emotional and everything else about it, and so Carl's like, "You look beautiful," and they kiss. And then it looks like for Brinity, they have a nighttime date as well, where it looks like somebody is doing the fire out of their mouth or whatever else. It looks like there's going to be all this action for their date and all of this and all of that. Both of them have nighttime dates, and it's given top 2. It's given y'all were the top 2 couples, right? So we're going to finish that out tomorrow and all of the things. And that is the conclusion of the show. And I just want to say this. I'm not here for the coddling of KC, and it's disappointing that, you know, him and TT are trying to argue that they're getting hate because they're black, but then they're spewing all this hate and negativity against ANIYA and Trinity, who are also black women, last time I checked. Like, y'all not making sense. Now, there are fans that are RACIST. We're not going to deny that, right? There are RACIST fans. However, the issue that, you know, the people have with you, KC, was the disrespect against ANIYA. And now it feels like all those apologies that you did towards ANIYA was fake and phony. And I hate this for ANIYA, that this feels like this is going to be a press tour of all this ANIYA hate and discourse. And I hate that for ANIYA, because Kenzie's brother just came out on social media and said ANIYA is the sweetest girl in this villa. ANIYA is the sweetest girl out of this entire cast. Including you, KC, including you, TT. You know what I'm saying? And it sucks that ANIYA is subjected to all this hate, all this negativity, all this projection. Y'all don't consider her black because of the type of family she came from, and that to me is disgusting. Or because of the way she talks, because of the way she carries herself. And the times that she did crash out and she got emotional and she got upset was because of the fact that she knew something was wrong in her connection with KC, and people were playing in her face and gaslighting her about it, including KC, and wouldn't be honest. And she was still choosing KC after it was all said and done. And I noticed that she doesn't have to ask for it. There's no reassurance that Carl has to provide her. And we didn't hear of any drama of Carl and Amora talking and everything else. Like, I'm just of confusion. You know what I'm saying? Because apparently Carl and Amora talked, and there wasn't this, oh, ANIYA was breaking up conversations. ANIYA was causing all these problems. Everything was fine. So it's weird that KC is taking on this smear campaign and calling ANIYA fragile. Like, it's just disgusting. So nonetheless, that is it for this video. Y'all need to do me the biggest favor and hype the video. Hype the video, please. There's that. That is it. That is all. It's todos es final. It's finito. It's the end of the road. It's the end of the line for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the moment I post the content on my channel. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.